Wednesday, February 9th, 2022 at 2 p.m. We are in the second floor media room at City Hall, and I'd like to call the meeting of the Public Art Committee to order. My name is Joan Jennings. I'm the chair of the committee. Marissa, can you call the roll, please?
Ms. Jennings?
Here?
Ms. Gregory?
Here.
Mr. Meals?
Here.
Ms. Robinson?
Here.
Mr. Sallow?
Here.
Mr. Stackhouse?
Here.
Ms. Hennessy?
Present.
We have a number of guests with us today. We have Mr. Craig Lunt. We have two city employees, Bob Robertson and Pat McNeese, and Cindy Tarapani. Would you please introduce the individuals who are here with you?
Sure. Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'm Cindy Tarapani. I think I know many of you, not all of you. I represent the Morgan Group. It's going to talk about agenda item number 2A. And with me today from the Morgan Group are Camille Salome, Harvey Gonzalez, and Jenny Bermudez. And they'll speak when we get to that part, when you're ready.
We're ready.
Oh, okay.
I told you were first at bat.
Jumping right in. Great. Thank you so much. Well, we appreciate the opportunity for you having us on the agenda today, and thank you to Diane for allowing us to come and talk to you. We wanted to talk very informally about a project, and I'll let the Morgan Group talk about that. Before we get into it, I just want to acknowledge clearly this has been a controversial project in the city. We're not here today, and we know the purpose of this meeting is not to talk about the pros and cons of the project. We just want to talk about a public art project on site. Morgan Group is very, very, very interested in doing that. So now I'm going to turn it over to Camille Salome to talk about that.
Thank you.
Afternoon, everybody. Camille Salame, development partner with Morgan Group. With me also is Harvey Gonzalez, he's development associate, and Jenny Bermudez, design manager. They'll both be working on this project. Morgan Group, I think I'll just give you a quick background on us in case you aren't familiar with it. Started building institutional apartments in the late 80s. Since have built about 20,000 units at about $3 billion worth of cost. Headquartered out of Houston, but we have a very super regional office in Miami. I'm part of that group and grew up in the area, so I get the leisure of traveling back and forth between Miami, which I love, but also coming to hang out with my family over in Sultan Springs. Go ahead.
I'm a New Yorker, so I can follow you, but could you slow down just a tad?
Yeah, no problem.
Thank you.
I was trying to get through the probably boring intros so we can get into the meat of it, but I'll slow down. So.
Thank you.
So anyway, I was hoping that to start, you could actually help me and the rest of the team by explaining the process just a bit. I want to get into the project itself, but I want to make sure I'm addressing things appropriately. And so if I may, and perhaps Ms. Jennings, you're the right person to do that, could you give me an overview of what the process typically is like when we're coming in for an approval?
Have you read the ordinance?
I have.
Everything is pretty much spelled out in the ordinance. When someone does a construction project in Tarpon Springs that's $1 million or over, which today is probably a doghouse,
It's a nice doghouse.
the developer has two options to either contribute a certain percentage of the value of the project to the Public Art Fund, or to create a piece of art that is approved by the Public Art Committee for an installation somewhere in Tarpon Springs.
Understood. And so I think one of the first things that would be most important for Morgan and our team is being able to hopefully get your guidance back on a location for the art, because it's hard to start discussing artwork without first understanding where that location might be. And so that's the real root of why we're here today. But it would be helpful to me if, let's just say we discuss the location today and want to come back at a later time to discuss more specifics about potential artwork. Could you elaborate on that just a bit? Is it that the applicant is proposing certain artists, and then this group is giving feedback on those artists, and
That's
then we
correct.
narrow it down to the actual specific artwork thereafter?
Yeah, that's the usual procedure. Usually what we do is we start out by vetting the artist to make sure that whatever work is produced meets a certain criteria. Obviously, that the artist's work has a track record of being sold at a certain value, or, so that we know we're getting our money's worth pretty much. Usually we try to, obviously we want to get an artist of some kind of recognized reputation. So, could bring in prior work and, what the artist is proposing. And then I think we could discuss the location. Do you know what media you're talking about?
I'd actually first like to focus on the location and then back into the actual artwork itself. I haven't identified a specific piece, let's say, that I'm interested in. First,
No,
I-
not a piece, but media.
It's going to be exterior, and so what the media is, it would have to be something that would be durable and would
it's a sculpture.
withstand the elements, but it would be some type of a sculpture.
It's
yeah.
a sculpture, yeah,
Yeah.
okay. So, do you have any artists in mind, or do you have any?
Nothing that's probably worth digging into for this meeting, although I have done my research a bit. I'll tell you, just to give you some background on Morgan, with every one of our projects, we end up having an art budget for it, whether it's required by the municipality or not. The developer usually gets involved in helping select that artwork. Alongside, we actually have an art consultant that we've engaged for some projects as well. And so, a project I did in Miami, it's a high-rise down in Midtown Miami. We had an art budget of about $150,000 for that project. And I probably picked out half of the pieces. And of those half, I would say probably 25% of those were custom. And so a lot of it's commissions to, kind of fit the project itself, because maybe you have a space that you want the artwork to kind of fit. And I see this as being something that's probably more custom.
Oh,
Then
it
something that's
definitely
not-
has to be an original piece.
Of course, no, but I meant, I don't think I'm going to find the right statue by walking into the artist's shop and he's going to say, how does this one work for you, right? We're probably going to have to work on selecting something. And it's so subjective, and so what I'm really, my concern and part of what I'm hoping to get from you is, as we, let's say, we, Morgan Group, may find an artist and a piece of artwork that we really like, present it to the committee and get your feedback, and let's say the committee is, you want it to be black instead of white, for example. What's the process thereafter? How do we work on reconciling it? And then also, once it's finally produced, because I've experienced this, sometimes you're not happy with the way artwork comes out. We've had to ask artists to go back to the drawing board, no pun intended, to kind of get something right. And so what is that process like as well?
It's probably the same process that you're used to. I mean, obviously there's a give and take. The thing is, for the most part, an artist has some kind of concept that they're going to present to you that you're going to bring to us. So, I don't think a color will make a big difference. It's more the concept, the conceptual idea of the piece.
Okay.
It would be nice if it had some kind of reflection, to the community. We obviously have a very distinct history and culture, and we'd like whatever work to reflect that. But I don't want to hog the floor. I'm going to let the other people grill you. Lucienne, do you have any comments or questions?
Yes. Can you talk a little bit about location?
Yeah.
Are you considering off-site or various locations within your site?
Let's talk about location. And Cindy, did you hand that out already?
Is there some extra of the large one by 17?
Or I can walk around and point it out if I had to.
I didn't realize it had stopped with me.
There's one that's a color, and then there's one larger.
Be able to.
It stopped with me, I'm sorry.
Cindy?
I don't think they're going to have this really available.
Indeed.
Like this idea.
I mean, if they want me to stay up here, I can. I'm happy to walk around and show it to folks
And then
as
one that
well.
looks like this.
Right. Right.
Both? Okay.
And, yeah, I can hold this up, because I'll only be on this one briefly.
Does this work?
Um,
Maybe does
no.
this display?
Let me try it this way first, and then if needed, we'll go try different.
Unfortunately, you would have had to have gotten that to the IT department at least 10 days prior to the meeting, sorry.
So I'm going to try to hold this up for everybody to see. If you need me to come in closer, I'm happy to. Overall site plan, right? Here's US 19. This is north, east, and south. On US 19, you can see we have a limited amount of frontage here. Just to the immediate south is a city-owned parcel. And then to the north, we're constrained by the Anclote River. And so on US 19, we've got two entrances on the immediate north and south end of the project. What you should note is in between that, there is a Duke easement where you can't have any structures placed in the Duke easement. And so that would mean we cannot place artwork within, we call it the first 75 feet of the project. And then shortly thereafter, you've got a roadway that's coming through the back and our clubhouse. At the front, when residents enter, they'll come in and there's a circular drive at the clubhouse. And then as you keep moving farther in, residents and resident guests that are given access will get through the gates to go into the back of the project. So in the front, there's this roundabout with a large area where we could place a statue at the front. And that statue would be located, this kind of roundabout's about 80 feet away from the roadway. So it's very close to the public roadway. there's a sidewalk that goes north and south right past it. And so drivers by and anyone walking or biking by would be able to see the artwork if it were placed in that location. I can't think of a better location for artwork on the project if it's going to be public artwork, but would like your feedback to that area.
You've hit on the important point, which is that it needs to be publicly accessible, so that if it isn't in that particular location, are there other locations on the property that would satisfy that requirement?
And so I'm going to pick up a different piece of paper because this really focuses in on the front. And so this, again, we have an easement that runs through here. So you wouldn't want to have any structures in that easement area. It's prohibited. And so really only other areas are kind of down here, which are probably not as grandiose as where we're discussing. So the best place for an art to be featured would be here. Alternatively, is it technically possible perhaps put something along this area? Yes. Would it be for the best of the artwork? No, I think, and public access as well. This clearly you can walk all around the artwork in that roundabout area. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, maybe I can ask a question too. We made an assumption, and I think maybe we want to confirm it. If you're looking at the colored drawing here, at the very bottom, you see where Building 1 is? Just immediately south of Building 1, there's two little rectangles. The first set of rectangles is the key card. The second set of rectangles is where the gate is. So from that, like the very edge of that Building 1 right here, going east is key carded, and you have to be a resident or you have to have been let in by a resident. If you come voting to visit somebody, you call them, they let you in. So we were assuming that anything behind the gate would not meet the requirement of publicly accessible. Is that
Correct.
Okay.
That's correct.
I just want to make sure we're all on the same page. So that's why we really focused on, the western edge, and as Camille has stated, the Duke Energy, there's no moving Duke Energy. They're pretty,
Right, so basically that solid green area that runs along 19 is the easement.
yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
Yes.
I mean, there might be some narrow space at the north entrance, but I don't know where, we'd have to realign the road, and we'd be again in the Duke easement, so.
Yeah, there is actually
There's
no
really not.
realigning that road. Yeah, you can't do anything there.
There's nowhere to put
It really is nowhere to put it.
The only other option I can think of, and I'm not sure this would meet publicly accessible, is if we did something down, where we're gonna have a boat dock area, but that's only accessible to people if they happen to be on the water. So I'm assuming
Yes.
that might not qualify.
What is the measurement of the entrance greenery as you're coming in to the left?
Are you referring to this greenery right here?
What is the measurement? of
So
that?
are you asking for height or width?
No, not height, but I imagine height is,
Height, so height on that'll be more low lying at this area. So Duke actually plans to have a power pole. They're installing poles at some point in the future along the side of US 19. And Duke may have the option to put a pole in that location. And again, with that Duke easement too, you are required to meet their landscaping restrictions as well. So all landscaping has to be low lying in that area. I don't have the exact width measurement of that space, but to my point, the Duke easement covers that area. You couldn't put anything there.
Lucianne, did you have any more comments?
No, that answered my question.
Yeah, along the same lines with, the biggest issue I see is the location. That probably is the only one that kind of fits the parameters of being public art. And that still kind of asks the question, how many people from the public are really going to have access or be in that area? So we've taken a fair amount of effort in, GISing our inventory of public art and trying to figure out where the corridors are, where people are going to get the most from the public art that we install. And we've actually said no to some nice projects because access wasn't going to be available to the general public. So that would be my only concern. So I understand why you're interested in location. So.
Okay. Trish?
I don't have any further questions.
David?
So, this mainly to the committee. I remember we were talking about the endangered species sculptures. Perhaps we can kind of tie this all in together, because when I see this circle drive, I see some type of 360 sculpture you drive around it and it's facing you from different angles, maybe like turtles or something like that. I don't know. Maybe with the water feature as well. I don't know if that's tied into the scope that you guys have for that specific.
So we currently don't have any plumbing going to that area for a water feature, but I'll tell you generally why we don't. I think water features look beautiful. The issue is with time. Water features always tend to degrade with time. And so we try to build something like we're going to own it forever. And so we want it to stand the test of time. In the interest of this being beautiful for many years to come, I would advise against a water feature at the front.
But even so, I think that's a great location, and especially for a sculpture, something that you can kind of appreciate by going around it. So maybe something that's more of a third dimension, something that's encompassing the whole area
And I'll tell
instead
you-
of just front facing.
Agreed. I completely agree on that point. And I'm glad you like the location. I also, just having been in the area for most of my life, you don't see a lot of artwork on US 19. And so I felt like this would be neat for also just passerbyers that are just driving by. It's part of our front door, your front door, you know.
Unfortunately, they're going to be going 120 miles an hour.
Well, I can't control how fast I'm driving.
Or stop still.
Robert, do you have any?
Yes, first question is not as specific about this, but is public art the only art features you're planning in this project?
That's a great question. The answer to that's no. So we will plan art in the interior of the clubhouse. We may also include some art by the pool area. We typically do something like that as well. And we'll include art in the model units when we're showcasing potential units for someone to rent.
Okay, so this leads to my second comment about this, is that looking at this footprint, I see where that traffic circle is really in the only place where a piece of public art could probably work. It's unfortunate that, given the nature of this site, that it's a natural lowlands, it's a waterland, all that kind of thing. Yet everything that you sort of mentioned has nothing to do with that. Has nothing to do with the environmental aspect of this property or the Anclote River. I mean, I think that's a good place for you to look at. That's not something that you'd come to us about, but how do you deal with a water feature in this thing? How do artists deal with it? There's tons of them. There's hundreds of them that would be really excited about working something with this other than making a sort of statue. The site that you have, what I'm saying is, it's surrounded by asphalt and cars. And if you put it there, it's been brought up that it's not going to be totally visible. You're driving by, you're not going to see it. However, here's the other thing, as an artist, I can always say this to you guys: increase your budget, make it bigger, and they'll see it. That would be something that would be a landmark for this. It would be a point of reference, but you have to get up above the trees and the buildings for it to work, or it's just going to look like a sign out in front of a liquor store. I mean, and unfortunately, that's what the aesthetic environment of Route 19 is. Nobody sees any art because nobody's looking for it. They're all looking for a sign to go somewhere, and this is going to function as a sign, but it's also functioning as public art. So I think that, this is one of my pet things, is that there's a total budget on this whole project, and then there's a budget for the public art. And I think for it to become something that would be unique to this area, to this project, really call attention to it, would be to increase that budget. You get more artists that'll be interested in it. $150,000, you say? It could cost half that to build a foundation. So, what you're going to get is not going to be very public unless somebody turns around in that thing. And then you're going to see, you're going to see a piece of sculpture with cars behind it, no matter which way you look at it. The only way you're going to really pursue that as a landmark statement for this incredible piece of property and what you're going to do with it is to make that sculpture a statement. It has to go up high to make that statement. You have to reach up somehow, and has to call attention that way.
Debbie?
So you touched on a lot of points, if I may just respond
I
briefly.
don't know if
sure,
I'm
I'm sorry.
responding or just
Yeah,
venting.
and so I haven't discussed budget, I haven't discussed height. I'm just asking about location. We'll, of course, need to dig into specifics on height
Yep.
and budget at a later date. I know that the requirement from the Land Development Code is a certain budget. That doesn't mean that I'm just going to spend that amount. I've already expressed that we actually spend that or more on our own volition on other projects. And so I think what I'd like feedback on today is just the location. I can dig into specifics at a
That
later
was my
date.
feedback on the location.
So I'm not sure what your feedback was, because this
I
is,
don't think it's gonna work as a public piece of public property that's going to emphasize what you're doing with this project.
and I also want to clarify one more thing. It's not going to be a sign for the property. We'll have our own monument
I know
signage.
that.
So this
Yeah,
is
yeah,
not what
I
that
know
is.
that. And,
Okay.
and the thing is that, you know,
It will be beautiful. We'll make it beautiful, and I can promise you, I'm passionate. I do art on my own on the weekends just for fun. We have picked this location and thought about it throughout the entire planning process because we knew we were constrained on space. We could have not have had that roundabout and just left it blank and paid into the budget of whatever it was, $100,000. We didn't want to do that because we want it to be beautiful as people come by US 19. We want every aspect of this project to be great, and this is part of it. We're going to make it great. You just got to give us the chance to get there, and we're not there yet. We're just focused on location today. We'll come back with something that will be impressive.
okay,
So thank you, Robert, for reading my mind. And to my point, I do not see that I will be able to enjoy it as I'm passing by because I don't live here. But if that would be the site that would be selected, it would have to be extremely unique. It would have to be a beacon that would call to say, hey, you want to go over, you want to drive over, you want to see that piece that they put, it's absolutely fabulous. It has to be very high so that people can even appreciate it slightly from the road. And it really needs to honor the site. That is a very special site that your property is going on. And that site needs to be honored. It needs to be done in an artistic but honoring way.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
I think I got one more thing.
Oh, David, excuse me.
Do you think, obviously this would be the main piece of art that you want to do, but would you consider doing smaller pieces of art throughout Tarpon Springs?
When you say smaller pieces of art throughout Tarpon Springs, what do you have in mind?
Well, we had an idea for the endangered species. I'm going to bring this up, like elephants, things of that nature, purchasing other sculptures to put throughout Tarpon to kind of encompass you with us.
I just want to make sure I'm following. I'm just not quite following. So when you say encompass us, with you or you with us, what is that?
Maybe I can rephrase it. It's on the agenda, actually. It's really a topic of discussion.
Okay.
Someone from Australia sent us a proposal with sculptures of internationally endangered species. And we thought that we would create almost like a park of sculptures of Florida endangered species. Is this making more sense? So it would be limited panthers,
Bills.
Right. So the thing is that I think where David is going with this is that would you be willing to sponsor something like that in Tarpon proper?
Well,
I
wouldn't,
can quickly respond if you
Okay.
want. Just generally speaking.
Yeah, go ahead.
You have something you want to say?
Go ahead.
Ladies first.
Okay.
No?
well, I guess and I'll maybe, Morgan may have an opinion about it too, but I guess we understood the way the ordinance worked was that either we did it on site or the money gets contributed and then y'all could purchase those pieces or whichever pieces that the Public Art Committee wants to purchase. I mean, it goes into your fund.
Right.
And I know you have a budget and I've seen the work that I've seen many of the pieces that you've done. So, I mean, I don't understand how that would be, if we don't elect to do a piece on site and we do contribute, I'm not sure what you're asking us to do more than contribute, I guess is the question.
Well, I think if you're facing a blowback towards the community, that might be something to soften the blow a little bit.
What are we facing a blowback about?
I thought that you guys were, you said there was an issue with,
The project's been approved, and so we're not really here to talk about the projects. That's obviously not the purview of this board, and I'm sure y'all aren't interested in getting into all the development projects, because they're pretty, they're complex. They're totally different from what your authority is. We really just want to talk about the public art for this project. I mean, we do have approval from the city commission on the development process. We're going through the permitting process, so, you know, we're just, as part of, this is just the natural next step is to, there's a variety of other things we're doing as part of the permitting process. This is one of them, and we are trying to see if we can do an art on site or not. And the only other thing I wanted to say is I'm sure y'all all know pretty well the public art project at Icaria, which is set back substantially further than this project would be. I didn't measure it, but I'm guessing it's 1,000 feet off the road, off alternate 19. And it's gonna have buildings in front of it. We'll have no buildings in front of this location. So there's a clear view down to it. And again, folks that come to the property to visit, it's all, I mean, in my opinion, it's publicly accessible. So the fact that it happens to be a busy road, so is alternate 19. I mean, I drive alternate 19, I'm sure y'all do too, and Icaria was approved with the public art project as well.
Diane?
I just wanted to say that I think we need to stick to the agenda.
Yes.
And what the purpose of the Borga Group coming today is, and they're kind enough to show us their site of where they're proposing for the public art, and that's what the focus of this purpose is. So let's just stick to that, and we appreciate them giving us the opportunity to look at where the public art would be and what it's going to be, and the media and everything is basically if they decide to do the public art themselves, it's going to be up to them, and they'll come back to the committee at a later date with their proposal and the artists that they've chosen, so.
With all that said and the clarifications, which thank you, Ms. Wood, I will say, I'll go back to that project in Miami that we worked on. Half of the artists were local artists. Some of the art was public art, some was not public art, but it's all in areas where public can easily have access to, and we want to be a part of the community. So I want to learn more about what your preferences are, because you're going to give me a lot of feedback about what the local customs and norms are. I also hope I can bring in a little bit of what I've seen elsewhere and share that with you all and get your reaction to it as well, because in Miami, for example, on that one deal, it was, you know, like I said, half local artists, but the other was from New York, California, someone from, you know, Europe. So it brought in other kind of flavors that helped diversify the artwork a bit, right? Diversify what otherwise would have been typically in that area. And, you know, I don't know what this Australian artist has, and I don't know that we can incorporate it maybe in this specific location.
Oh,
but
no, we
maybe
ruled it
it's
out.
even-
No, we ruled it out.
Oh, no, but I'm just saying,
Yeah.
even just learning about it, it would be neat for me to understand, because maybe I want to get something from the same artist as part of the clubhouse artwork or something by the pool deck, you know, and I understand we're going to be a part of the community. I want to integrate into the community, you know, so.
I think that's kind of what my point was you got a sculpture that goes with sculptures that we're going to be putting in Tarpon, so it brings us all together.
Yeah.
Like, we're all one big community, and it's not, you have a sculpture that's not running with ours, or, you know what I mean? Kind of bring us all into the,
I understand. Hey, but also, you also don't want it to all look the same, right? So it's
Right,
all
right.
cohesive, but diversity within that kind of
Correct.
matrix. Yeah.
I would also, I know your space is limited. I understand that. I truly do.
Yeah.
But along those same lines, I truly would like to see something along the marina for the boaters that do come through, because the boaters do come through.
It's not a
It's not a
marina.
marina.
Oh, it's not a marina?
No, it's
it's
not a
not a
publicly
marina.
accessible marina. It's boat docks solely for the residents.
Oh,
And it will
thank
not be, it's not for all the units. It'll be very limited because of the location on the river.
Well, thank you for the clarification then.
Sorry about that. If I misspoke, I apologize.
And I will say, there's a lot of desires that we all have when we start looking at a sheet of paper and want to, you know, create something beautiful. And then there's all these other governmental agencies that kind of tell you what you have to do. So I'm not even sure that I could put something out there, even if we wanted to. And so it's like, as we start evaluating things, are going to be like the Duke easement, for example. There will be other restrictions that kind of we run into. So know that we have the desire to make it beautiful. Know that we're going to try to come up with something that integrates ourselves into the community quite well. And, you know, I hope that we can all, you know, work together on something great.
Well, we're looking forward to seeing what you come back with.
Okay.
Go
Thank
forth and create art.
I appreciate it.
Cindy, did you look like you had something to say?
I guess I'm not sure, I guess I kind of like to get some kind of a consensus of whether or not that location, generally speaking, is acceptable. I understand the concerns about height and making it monumental and all the other concerns about reflecting local culture, but for us to proceed further, we kind of like a consensus as to whether that location that we're proposing is acceptable to this committee.
It doesn't look as though there are any other choices for public accessibility, given the site plan. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's a thing, we have that option. I mean, I don't know how we can say, well, you gotta put your public art somewhere else. There is nowhere else to put it, so,
For it to be public.
yeah, for it to be public.
And on-site. That's the only,
So, go, that's,
No, I don't want to.
Did you want to vote?
Okay, well, we understand, yeah, and I appreciate you understand the site is limited, and obviously you have to have security, so, but we did, as Camille said, from the very beginning of the design, we'd always anticipated and hoped that would be an acceptable location and kept that space for it, so thank you, I appreciate the information and your opinions, and we'll take it all in consideration as we move forward in the next steps.
great.
And if you would, please send us info on the artwork that we discussed.
Yeah, maybe we can get that from Ms.
David.
Wood.
Oh,
about
this is
the-
all archived on YouTube.
Well, I guess,
Meeting,
you
is
mean
there-
there's another artist that you're about to discuss, so you're saying go look at it on YouTube. I was wondering if I get some information on the Australian artist, I believe it
We can-
is.
You can get it to us?
Yeah, Diane has.
Just so I can get a.
We can do that.
Great.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, thank you for the presentation.
Thanks.
Thank you so much.
Bob? Oh, thank you. Excuse me, my parliamentarian here. In an effort to accommodate our guests, I overlooked the approval of the minutes. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes from the last meeting?
I make a motion to approve.
Second, Bill?
yes.
Okay. Are there any amendments, corrections? Okay, so, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Minutes are approved as submitted. Thank you. Go ahead, Bob, I'm sorry.
Hi.
Hi.
Good afternoon. I'm Bob Robertson. I'm the Project Administration Department Director. And if you don't know what that means, it's basically the de facto engineering department for the city. We manage something on the order of 40 projects, plus or minus, as projects get completed and new ones get added to our list. That's me and a giant team of 2 other people. So there's 3 of us that are managing most of the projects, not all the projects that the city does, but a big majority of them. I understand I've been asked here to just do a little Q&A on projects. I do have one I wanted to talk with you about, but I'll start with your agenda before I go to mine. So, Madam Chair, where do we start?
Well, Lucianne, do you have anything to ask of Bob?
Yeah, I'm wondering about the South Spring Street project, where that is. I think you're still in planning stages, but
We're a little bit further along than that, but yeah, I guess you could call it the early design stages. We've hired a consultant. They've come up with some alternatives that we're going to be vetting, not only with the public, but with the Sustainability Committee, that we're presenting to them the first concepts, and I think it's next week. And then I'm going to be going to the Board of Commissioners in March and giving them an update on what the schedule is. So we're coming up with alternatives with the idea of narrowing it down to one alternative that we can apply for grant funding to come up with a long-term solution there.
thank you. I have a specific question about funding. Does that project, as infrastructure, qualify as a city capital improvements project?
It can.
And if so, there's a condition in our ordinance that stipulates that a certain percentage be set aside for public art. But the ordinance is a little bit confusing. It talks about eligible projects being buildings, of course, greenways, et cetera, and then it excludes projects that are drainage, maintenance, blah, blah, blah. So
Right.
I think maybe Mr. Trask, maybe somebody ought to take a look at that and see how we could entitle that project so that we can build some public art into the design of it? Because I think we've all expressed at one time or another, most recently Robert at the comprehensive planning workshop, we'd like art to be incorporated into projects, not plunked on top of them or as an afterthought. So if there's a way to squeeze the funding out, I think it'd be great.
I understand the point. Yes, I think what you're talking about is basically it's a glorified seawall project. And I'm not sure that something like that would fit that definition, but it's worth looking into.
Will it have a walkway or berm?
That's going to be up to the final decision. Most likely not. There may be a combination of berms and, they're called T-walls, but they're basically seawalls that are above ground. There's going to be a combination of those, and if you do that, you can't do a walkway, because otherwise you're going to have people balancing on you do a balance beam across this T-wall thing. So,
That would be interesting.
Thank you.
sure.
Bill?
No, again, the main purpose, I think, that we had as a group was to make sure that we're aware of projects as they're in their
Understood.
initial stages, so that we can, it's a lot of hard engineering, and if there's anything we can do to soften it and make it more, artistic. And that's limited that you can do, I understand.
Very
There's a lot
much,
of
yes.
limitations. But any opportunities that we would have, I think that's what this group's looking for.
I understand. Thank you. Thank you for clarifying that.
I think my question was pretty much the same as Lucy Ann's,
Oh, okay.
so we're telepathic again today. Yeah, because I believe it came up at one of the Board of Commissioners meetings about, the eligibility of, the contribution to the Public Art Fund from city projects. So
Yeah.
if you'll look into that, that would be
Sure.
great.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
worth
Trish?
looking into.
David? Robert?
Yes, I think what Lucy Ann brought up and what Jen was talking about and Bill was that it's really good for us to know about these kind of projects, and if they're teetering on the edge of being just a works project or something that does involve the public in some way. We're constantly looking for art projects, but we, instead of just looking for a statue placed here or a mural placed on that wall, we're looking for innovative and projects that challenge both us, the community, and the artist. And there are many artists out there. If you follow, if you look at CODA and other kinds of things online for public art projects, you see a lot of people are dealing with this kind of an issue. It's not necessarily where you would expect art to be, but quite often the artist can solve those kinds of problems or contribute to a solution to, you have a raised walkway, but you can't, a raised seawall, but you can't make a walkway there. An artist could maybe see that because they're not seeing a seawall all the time. They're seeing it as a place to react to make it engaging for people to work with.
Right.
And over time, I think public art has done that because we talk about, we got to decorate dumpsters, and we got, this whole concept 40 years ago probably wasn't anything, or even murals, which are all over the sides of buildings.
Sure.
So,
Yeah, I see your point.
so that's something that should interest us is things that may not at first seem to be an art project site.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Debbie?
And better for things to have artistic forethought instead of afterthought.
Yes, and I think the forethought is important.
Just as when you're driving down to Clearwater and the retaining wall for the overpass,
Yes.
it's beautiful,
thinking that,
shells and sea animals, and,
Graffiti.
I mean, it's interesting. It looks, I
Yep.
will look at that, and I'm looking at all the different, things can be done with beauty and aesthetics instead of just concrete slapped. And then what do we do to make it look better? So I want the forethought to go into it.
It's a good example, too. Thank you.
It's a good
And
addition.
did you all want to ask Bob about the water feature project that you were talking about, Lucianne? Is that the questions that you asked him at the beginning, or?
No,
I mean,
I'm
since-
asking about South Spring Street and the
Sure.
the solution to the flooding in that area.
Do you want to see if Bob can, shed some light on something that we could do in
Yeah,
the water?
Diane proposed a couple of months ago that we consider a water feature in Spring Bayou. We've looked at a lot of different examples and projects. We know that that will be regulation heavy. And we really can't proceed until we have a workshop with all of the major players on city staff that would, to see whether it's even feasible.
You talking
We
about
have
like a
other
fountain,
ideas.
a floating fountain or
Well,
something like that?
The one that I had seen online was, it was kind of like, it was more like a pole, so to speak, where they had done this flock of birds that was kind of flying over the water. It wasn't actually in the water, I don't think, or it might have been on the seawall and it kind of came out of there, but it gave the appearance of, a flock of seagulls or something, flying over the water. And I was just thinking Spring Bayou is so beautiful, kind of thing, but I don't know about, then we talked about some sort of environmental kind of aspect of it that could actually help the water, recycling it in such a
Some way
way.
to aeration.
And that is so far beyond
Yeah,
our
I know.
skills
so
and
it's
knowledge
almost-
that we really need city input.
Yeah.
And weren't you going to get a workshop together for us on
I
that?
didn't know, I think we need to determine if it's actually viable to do. I don't know what the constraints are with the county or like who owns the bayous or,
There are
or-
about 5 different regulatory agencies.
Right.
I just didn't know how viable it was to actually maybe table that and move on to something, another project. I don't know. I mean,
I think
I
when you
just-
work with an environmental thing, though, I think a lot of people are gonna be looking for that kind of a thing. I think that this is the
Sure.
time to really pursue that. And you get county and state maybe working with this, with the city. and-
I just didn't know who had jurisdiction over the waterways, and I thought maybe
Right.
you knew that, or if that was
Yeah,
even
I don't know.
viable.
I mean, it depends on what you're proposing. If it's something that's floating that can be removed, then, maybe there's some leeway. If you're talking about something like this bird sculpture thing that's mounted on the shoreline, then it wouldn't need it to be, you wouldn't need to involve any of the state lands or sovereign submerged land leases or any of that kind of thing. So it definitely would take some research.
Yeah.
Can't just throw it out there.
Because if it was in a waterway and there were boaters and there's
Right.
wildlife and everything, who does jurisdict the, is it a state thing?
That
or-
is state in
State.
that area, yeah.
Okay.
And then you'd have, if you're doing anything on the shorelines, it's an Army Corps permit, and it can be tricky. My own experience with Army Corps permits is, well, let's just say I lost all my hair because of Army Corps permits. Yes, ma'am.
So to be able to go in to the bayou, literally into the bayou, and place something, an object that would create aeration and thereby increasing the grass that would be in there, making it more hospitable for the manatees. I mean, is that something that is possible, that
Well, yes,
this group can initiate a push for, or no?
if,
There used to be a fountain in the bayou.
There used to be.
Yeah.
In the 30s.
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know that that's an argument you can really make in a water body the size of the bayou that's naturally flushed. Dissolved oxygen is not a problem. It's not impaired for DO.
Okay.
So adding a fountain that would increase it is not something that could sell it.
Okay.
Nice idea, but we always look for those angles, right? Those win-win angles. So unless there's any other questions, I did have one thing I wanted to bring to this
Yes,
group's
why don't
attention.
you,
Yeah, so, a short story. Back in, I think it was September, we brought to the Board of Commissioners a project for approval. If you go to the third page, this project was to install a non-functioning railroad arm on Safford Avenue, southbound on Safford, south of Tarpon Avenue. And the idea was to just, to mark historic Tarpon Springs, and they wanted a sign that said that. So we put together a sketch, we put it out to bid, and no one bid on it. So we went to the Board of Commissioners and said, okay, board, what do you want us to do? And what they said was, well, we'd like you to come back to us with some ideas on how to use the existing railroad arm. And what they were talking about is this thing on the first page. This vertical piece here, which I've learned is a semaphore sign arm, it's not a railroad arm. And that's why I gave you that third page with the train.
Can we
That-
get the train? I think Robert's special wanted the
I'll
train.
go for that train right away.
So, what they asked us to do was to come back with some ideas for attaching something to this antique artifact, historic semaphore arm. Now, before I even did anything like that, I would want to do an evaluation of the condition of this thing. And I've spoken with some folks who did evaluate it like 10 years ago, and the cost was something like $8,000 to $10,000 just to renovate it so that it could be, or restore it, so that it could withhold something. And then I don't know if we can safely attach anything to this. But we told the board that we would look into it, and I thought, well, since I'm here, I might just talk to you all about your ideas. If something strikes you in this concept of attaching something horizontally that basically does the job of what this design was supposed to do. If you like that idea, if you have some other idea, if you thought this sign was okay too, I would just love to hear what you have to think or have to say.
What does semaphore mean?
I don't know what that means, but that's the name of this thing.
It's the
That
signal.
With the
thing.
train. It's the signal.
It's a signal, it goes up and down,
Saying,
I think.
there's a train coming your
This
way,
track's clear.
don't come the same way.
It's
Yeah,
very
so-
far removed from the intersection, actually, so it
It is a bit back, yeah.
doesn't look like it would provide aesthetic or safety,
Right,
one way or the other.
right. And the one that was proposed would be closer to the intersection.
Why do I have the urge to move that, the sign, the arm,
The other way.
over? So that the arm is actually over the trail where the railroad actually was?
To a
Am I
smaller
making sense?
scale.
Meaning to make this bigger?
No, move it. In other words, just take it and then shift it so that it's over the,
Oh,
What does that do to truck traffic?
yeah.
well, if it was over the bike trail, then it wouldn't affect anybody unless you had a
You'd have to take-
16-foot bike.
Make it a little smaller.
Yeah.
Yeah. Certainly have to have a deeper footer for something like that.
I mean, a thing to do is,
I don't know. Could work.
if we can't think of how we would approach this thing, I'm quite sure there are people out in the country that would. If this were given as a target project for us to try to find out what could happen to this, I mean, this is something that could be presented as, here's a site, here's a concept to work around, who's got ideas on this, and for a certain budget, you know, it's just a call for artists can solve that, not solve it, but deal with that as an issue.
Okay, that's an idea.
I think that's a thing, if this is where public works and public art really get close together. You know, it's a,
Yeah, I mean, to me, it just seems like, almost like a simple sign, because when we were working on the gateway signage, I think that predates a lot of you guys on the committee, but, you know, we looked at a lot of things like this that were just strictly signage.
Yeah, yeah.
And, you know, it's, I mean, I appreciate Robert's comments about going to artists, but to me, this is more, you know, graphic or utilitarian than
Right.
artistic.
Right.
I almost see that not only does it need to extend over the Pinellas Trail, but I think there needs to be an arm that extends over Tarpon Avenue to give people a clue in, because I can't tell you how many people I see go through that intersection that don't even look for bicyclers. A lot of them are clueless.
Nobody stops.
Yeah,
There, I stop.
and the bicycles don't stop either.
Well, that's,
No.
people that stop even.
that
when there's
intersection
nobody in the-
improvement is a
There
whole
are
other
those too,
discussion.
Robert, you're right.
I have a slightly different idea. What about these bright yellow and red signals that are on an actual semaphore? I mean, why not reproduce those?
Okay. I'm listening. And put in a, so they want this whole historic Tarpon Springs marker on it.
Oh.
That's what the
Oh.
board wants. So,
In brown.
apparently.
Or beige. Those are two colors, brown and beige.
You know,
What about the color of Robert's shirt? I thought that was one of our
what's
sweater.
interesting is, I got fine arts degrees, and the color of the fine arts department at all universities is brown.
And when you mix gray and
When you mix all the
gray
colors
and green
together,
and all
right?
that.
It is, it's
Brown.
mixing all the colors together, I guess is what it is, but.
Yeah.
I mean, I still think that if this were a public art proposal, that you could get some creative things to, with all the parameters that you have.
Okay.
I mean, it doesn't have to be, there are a lot of people that deal with antiquity and Art Nouveau and all those kind of things that,
Yeah.
they can do that and you come up with a way to, create an umbrella on it or, something to create shade or that is very creative. And the thing about creative is it's not been thought of before. So,
Yes.
Bob,
yes.
are there any, like, old photographs of an arm like that?
Yes. Not with a sign on it that I've
No,
seen, but
no.
yeah, I don't have any printed, but I found a handful of old photographs of variations of this,
Right.
of the semaphore with the different signal types on it.
well, I think this is aluminum and this is steel.
Yeah.
I think that's one, the silver in this one is just aluminum. I mean, that's a basic semaphore. That's pretty traditional, I think.
I'm trying to refresh my memory. In that intersection on the Pinellas Trail, are there lights for them to light up blinking yellow, yellow, yellow?
Yes.
There are, okay.
Yeah, the bicyclists are supposed to push them to get the
Okay, because
oncoming
I know on
traffic.
Alt 19, I mean, it's very clear,
Right.
very obvious that there are going to be bicyclers crossing. In this intersection, it really isn't.
Well, the lights are there, but a
Yeah,
lot of
but
people.
I'm just saying, it's not obvious to people that there are gonna be bicycles crossing, or that there may be even yellow flashing signs, lights. But I do know that when I go down Alt 19, it's very obvious when you get to those sites. It's in Palm Harbor, but when you get to those sites, that there will be pedestrians crossing or bicyclers. This is not obvious.
Yep, you're right.
It's a safety issue.
Well, maybe give us a chance to do a little more thinking about this and poking around.
Thank you.
If you could email us some of those old photographs, that might be helpful.
Sure. Send them through Diane?
Yeah.
Okay.
I had some of these on my electric train.
There you go. That would be interesting.
Well, that's all I had. Thank you so much for
you,
entertaining
Bob.
that for me.
you.
And let me know if I can come back and talk to you sometime.
Yeah, love it.
Thanks, everybody.
Take care. Thank you.
Project on Spring Bayou, is that, is there going to be any kind of public forum for that, or is that just going to the Board of
Yes.
Commissioners? Oh, there will be.
Definitely.
As far as opportunities, because you are going to have some permits and things are going to have to be Army Corps of Engineer, I mean, that's a perfect time for us to, try to get some juices flowing to see if there's anything that can be incorporated into that to make it a little bit more aesthetically
Yeah.
pleasing.
Yeah. Look for that sometime in late April.
Okay.
Oh, that's soon.
And Bob, you have all your projects listed on the city website, correct?
I do, yeah. Thanks, Diane, for the prompt there. All you have to do is, if you do a Google search for Tarpon Springs Projects, the first thing that comes up is a link to to our project administration page. And then the first link on that page is the latest spreadsheet of all of the city's projects. We update it every week. So you
Great.
can look in and see what project you're interested in and what the latest news is.
You're a busy guy.
Thank you very much.
All I do is update that spreadsheet. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Okay. As a courtesy to Craig, I'm going to just switch these two next agenda items around. The illuminated art boxes, the QR codes. I think there was some concern, David was good enough to create a QR code for the art boxes, and there was some concern about risk of scamming. And Craig is a professional cybersecurity person, so he has given us of his time and expertise to talk to us about the QR codes.
Well, I didn't bring a presentation because I didn't feel one was necessary. I'm sure David showed you what a QR code looks like.
Yes.
The good news is, from your end of the QR code, you're safe, as long as whatever website that points to, I know it's supposed to add additional information for both the artists and the artwork and stuff.
Right, it goes
As
to
long as
Tarpon
that's,
Arts. Yeah.
you know, standard protected by the firewall and is hosted correctly, then you should be okay. Your biggest risk on this is going to be the fact that you're sticking QR codes on poles that have to be, I don't know, whatever the determined height it is, for people to scan with their cameras. That means you're going to be subject to defacement.
Right.
Now, defacement comes in several ways, but the most likely ones you're going to see are kids scrawling on them, because the 6-year-old thinks it's, you know, color within the line sort of thing, or making pictures out of it or something. Or somebody malicious is going to put something on top of your QR code, which directs somebody else to a site that's not intended. Those are your only two real risks that you're looking at. So you just need to keep in mind that, yes, you can put these up. I'm not sure who attends the light boxes or how often they're looked at, et cetera, but these stickers are gonna have to be looked at. And I would suggest initially looked at pretty regularly, just to make sure that they're not defaced and that they're not covered over.
So is there any way to put it like over the art, almost like a watermark?
You
Where
know,
if
I
took a
thought about
picture of
that,
the art, it would
but,
bring up the.
but then I was thinking that, you know, you're talking about a camera, and you're talking about a light box that's, you know, I don't know how many feet above the pavement it is. That's too far away to scan.
Okay.
So that was my first thought. I thought, oh yeah, this is great. We can impregnate it in the corner. This is good. And then I went, if our tourists are like need steps to get up there to do it, it's kind of going to obviate the point. So I know Joan and I had a brief discussion on it, and the only real way is to get them is to, you may not have to sticker them. I mean, you could actually affix something lower to the post that actually maybe encases them in plexiglass or something like that, so it's a little stick-out thing. Might be actually a little more obvious to the tourists that, you know, look at this sort of thing, or for, you know, for more information, whatever sort of verbiage you want to put on it. But I'm not sure who controls the ability to do that. I'm sure you went through that just hanging the art boxes on the light posts, but that might be another way to look at it. It's going to be more costly, obviously, because it requires something, and it's still going to require maintenance. However, it may not require the same amount of maintenance as if you put a sticker on that post. It's going to get defaced.
Right. So would you suggest maybe our best option is to put it in the pamphlet, the QR code, or something that they could scan? That way, we control that pamphlet, and nobody can scam all the pamphlets. You know, if they.
You know,
We have a pamphlet for the art commission, correct? And so we could just put the QR code in that, and then we wouldn't have all these issues that we're talking about.
well, yeah, if you just put it like in a paper pamphlet that you give out,
They can download it, yeah.
yeah, that would,
They can open it.
that would, you know, obviate the need, but I thought the whole idea was I'm walking down, go to Knies,
Right.
and I see this thing and I go like, oh, you know, learn more about the artist or whatever. I scan it right there and it brings me there.
Right. And that's what I was thinking, but if you put a sticker, somebody might think, oh, well, I'm gonna put a sticker too, and then all of a sudden
Well,
the pole is full of
You
stickers.
know, you run that risk. Like I said, the biggest thing, the biggest risk you're gonna have are defacement. The worst one is, I'm gonna go over and I'm gonna put a QR code that looks like your QR code over your QR code and directs you to a site. The thing with QR codes, and I don't know if you know the background of QR codes very well, but you're familiar with the barcode. Well, a barcode has limited information and can only be read from left to right. So even if it's scanned right to left, they still invert it and read it left to right. The thing with the QR code is it can be read left to right and top to bottom. So it contains 4,000 discernible characters that you can put in a QR code. Now, these things could do all sorts of things. They can be simple and just direct you towards a website. They can download an app on your phone. They can do a bunch of things because you're willingly saying, scan this. I mean, most phones these days, or a lot of people's phones, hopefully have something on their phone that'll say, no, you shouldn't be doing this or whatever, after, if it's downloading an application or whatever. But it is possible. The worst thing is, it's very simple. Instead of directing it to your website, it directs it to my website, and my website says, oh, you want to hear more about this artist? Click here. And you click there, and it downloads, malicious information or malware of some sort. So that's the risk you face. You don't really face any risk from your end. You just put the public at risk a little bit if you're not careful about where it goes.
And I wonder what liability it actually places the city at.
Greg, would you know? I mean, if.
As far as liability, if somebody does that, I don't think you're going to be liable for it, but I mean, I'm not an expert on liability from external, from things like, I wouldn't imagine so, because it's like, you can't be liable for somebody marking a car
Right.
that's driving down there,
Yeah, graffiti
or whatever, or defacing one of the city signs and I don't know, changing Athens Street to App Street or whatever. It's just, you're not going to be responsible for that.
Yeah. Many years ago, I was working on a project called Museum in the Streets, and it was a series of placards that were placed around the municipality saying, at this point, Diane Wood, decided that she was going to, put on a play, whatever. But it was some kind of, and this technology goes back easily 15 years. It was a certain kind of vinyl where the image was actually embedded in the vinyl, and it was basically defacement proof. You couldn't scratch it, and you couldn't, and it would be very obvious if something was stuck to it, because it's,
Yeah, I understand.
a plastic plaque. That might be something to look into.
There is some technology that I've been looking into for the museums and the art in the museums that might work. I don't know if, but it's an app that, it's kind of like there's a little dot that's placed either, behind the art or whatever, and the app automatically picks it up and gives you information about wherever that is. And I'm trying to look into whether or not we could put it on each of the frames, and if it'll do the same thing, and whether it can be with the weather and things like that, how it could be adhered, so.
Was it a passive device, or?
It's from a specific company that has the app that people would download on their phone, and then it kind of takes them on a tour. It also maps the
so
art,
It's
too.
probably an app that sits on their phones and is reacting to an RFID chip that's embedded in the thing.
Yeah, I'm not sure how it works.
So if I
And
was walking
that
down the
again,
street
an
without-
RFID chip has a range of maybe 3 feet, 3.5 feet. It's going to, the sign to embed it on the artwork itself is going to be prohibitive, I think.
So if I was walking down the street and I didn't know about this app, I still wouldn't have any access then,
Unless you had the app on your
unless
phone.
I had the app on my phone,
Correct.
knowledge of it, and had the app on my phone.
Yeah, it's, an automated docent type thing where you're in a museum, it might be a little bit more,
Right.
a museum of modern
And
art
then
or
you'd have to
whatever.
have
It
a
might be
sign
a
on the
little bit more
street saying,
practical.
looking through the.
Look for the dot.
Yeah.
Then that would get the.
But you wouldn't have to have 20 QR codes.
Look for the dot.
So I don't know, but we have to investigate it more, I guess, the technology.
Okay, well, I'm glad to come back and, rediscuss anything that you
Right.
come up with.
Well, thank you very much for coming today, and if you have any brainstorms about something we could,
Yeah,
use.
I do a lot of weird searching on people's behalf. I can throw this into the mix. Am I allowed to make an aside comment here?
Sure.
On a subject that I know nothing about? if you're looking for a public art project for Spring Bayou, it's going to be difficult to alter the waterway. By the way, there's a movement underfoot to, as we're dredging all the cuts and so forth and so on, Spring Bayou actually has, or did have, a spring in it. I remember this spring. It doesn't really function that well anymore, so there's a good likelihood that they might look at dredging Spring Bayou out a little bit. As you can see, when the kids were diving, they're up to here now.
Right.
They used to be over their heads. So it's silted up as most of the rest of the ones. My suggestion, one thing might be to look at, I have no idea what the costs and stuff like that, but we own and control the walkway around Spring Bayou. If you altered the walkway, and this is where it might get expensive, to do like a water type of a sculpture coming out of it, then for starters, you're not messing with every Tom, Dick, and Harry water agency, and we have 6 of them, I think. It's a little bit more expensive, but there's things like, okay, so we're having Epiphany, you can turn that off. Does it have the same effect as aerating this bayou water, because you'd be pulling water out and putting it back in? Yes. So it does that effect. It just, I'm not sure what it would cost to be able to do. It might be as simple as just piping around the underlip of the seawall itself. You certainly wouldn't, may not have to dig into it.
Well, you look how Disney treats water. I mean, they make art out of water easily. I mean, you can walk through.
Yeah,
it
I mean,
it just turns off by your walking through it, so you can walk through this
Yeah,
shower of
there's water parks and stuff like that. They do all sorts of crazy things with water these days. But that would just sort of maybe keep you away from the actual, I don't know what I had to go through lately, but the city's in control of the waterways, by the way. The prime people involved, it's in our code, is involved with the bayous and the river that goes through Tarpon Springs. However, Pinellas County controls anything that's built over the water in conjunction with the Wildlife Fund. The DOT doesn't really get involved anymore, or the State Department. They just kind of pushed it all the way down to the county. So I know he thought there was a whole bunch more, and there may be when you're dredging a river, but for the bayou, I wouldn't imagine it's too much. However, you could probably avoid all that sort of scrutiny with doing a waterway, just a suggestion. Sorry.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank
very
you.
much.
Okay, back to item A, the sports field mural project. Bill and David, are we going anywhere with this?
Not yet.
Yeah, not
Okay.
yet.
Okay,
They're still working on Sisler.
okay,
Can I make one more suggestion about
Sure.
the QR?
yeah.
Would any of the small shops down there be interested, maybe if we put a small little, one of those like sticky plastic things that says the Tarpon Arts with a QR code that sticks on the inside of the glass? So that people can scan from the outside?
That's a
I
good
think that
idea.
might stop all this altogether.
What now? I'm not following
So
you.
you ever seen those stickers, like when you get your oil change, they stick it on your glass and you can peel it off?
Yeah.
Stick it on the inside of the glass so people can scan from the outside, but there'll be no defacement unless somebody goes in there and peels it off.
But he said it was too high to scan.
No.
Shop windows.
Shop windows.
Shop window, okay.
That's a good idea. Maybe we should approach the Merchants Association, see if we can, I'm sure we could get some buy-in from them for a small
I think it
sticker.
would keep the stickers off the poles, it would keep this whole thing.
Right,
under
and
wraps.
attract people to the shops.
Proud
Right.
supporter of Tarpon Arts.
There you go.
Is there any kind of public information that those boxes are there, other than there being there? Just to segue into that, that could be right next to a poster in a window that says, look up there.
Right,
Look at the art boxes, do look up.
right, with some of the pamphlets.
Yeah, and
you
then
can pull one
pamphlets
out.
and then the code right there, and you'd have an interaction between the stores, and you don't need all of them. I mean, you get four stores maybe up and down, go to
Right.
Denise. And then people would see that, because a lot of people just don't do that. Unless a pelican flies over or something like that.
Okay, I'll approach the Merchants Association and see if we can get some buy-in for that. Okay, project updates, the Black Heritage Project. I collated all of the comments from the selection panel and got down to 4 projects. They were all kind of neck and neck. I spoke to Diane, and I sent the 4 an email asking them if they were amenable to making changes to their artwork to meet the comments and criticisms of the selection panel that primarily dealt about historical and cultural accuracy, and also to confirm that they'll be able to deliver the artworks in line with the budgeted amount. They replied within, like, hours, all 4 of them, to the affirmative. Okay, I collated their comments and sent them to the selection panel so they could take a closer look at those 4 projects and really, whittle down, their comments and criticisms to send back to the artists. So it's moving along. And then once we get some of the, once we get the revised 4 projects back, it'll come to us, and then we'll take a final look at it. Any questions about this?
But we only get to see it once they've modified everything, and this is pretty much concrete.
Oh, yeah, because the thing is that, a lot of the comments didn't deal with the art. It dealt with the content. Some of the, like, for instance, one of them had, it was almost like a undersea type thing with the sponge hookers, in the boat on top. And there were a few comments that they wanted the figures larger, to emphasize the cultural aspect of it. So that's what the process
That
is.
was from the panel?
Yes, the selection panel.
Okay. And I understand we're not selecting them, but I was just asking, is the procedure, we just get to see the final 4.
Right.
And
Yeah, the thing is that the selection panel was really kind of a mixed bag. Lynn Whitelaw and Teresa Wilkins were former directors of the LIPA Ratner, Rod Davis from SPC. Nicolette Henderson replaced Dudley Sally, who unfortunately passed away. She's a history teacher. We had 2 members of the black community, Annie Dabbs and Reverend Smith. So we had, a pretty good cross-section of people that were all giving us different perspectives on what they wanted to see as the end result. So, it's turned into quite a, big thing, because it is incorporating all of these different, facets into, finished artwork. So I'm really looking forward to, what we're gonna end up with. But everything's moving along. Speaking of which, the Naiads repair. Okay, I got an update from Desmond at St. Kate's. The repairs were done at the foundry. They're awaiting pickup from St. Kate's, and as soon as he finds it in his schedule to pick them up at the foundry, they will be reinstalled. Okay, water feature project in Craig Park, Lucianne. We kind of tap danced around this, but
We have. So what I am hearing from Bob is that in Spring Bayou is dead on arrival. Is that what I understood?
yeah.
Okay. There are a lot of locations in town, other than Craig Park, that we have identified as underserved. And I guess with that eliminated, Spring Bayou eliminated, I'd like us to look at some other possibilities that could be artistic water features, but also serve as cooling stations. So I would like feedback from you, either now or after you've had time to think about it, that we could pinpoint locations like that. Heat is going to be a huge issue for us. It already is, but it will become more so. So if we could cool people off and give them a respite as well.
Yeah, my son lives in a suburb of Columbus, Ohio, and as part of their public park, they have, it's almost like a shallow bowl, and they have different kinds of artistic sculptures that are basically water spouts. And, you know, it functions as a cooling station. Something like that might be one thing to look at. You know, it can be done quite artistically, but it's accomplishing pretty much, you know, what you're saying. Bill, do you have any,
No, I just need to look around and see if I can
yeah,
see any opportunities. There's also got to be some storm water runoff that we could, I've seen some unique things done with that as well. that-
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And, you know, a lot of European projects, you can't tell where the art starts and the runoff. You know,
Yes.
they're really,
Very creative.
yeah.
Were you thinking along the trail where people be walking and biking, or just all around the town?
I don't think we can do anything on the trail.
You think
That's the county.
Yeah.
okay, so that
I mean,
would
that's
be-
what we've heard
That
here
would be a
before.
perfect place for something like that. with people
That's right.
walking.
I thought Safford Road is city. It's
The road is, the median is-
The bike track is county, but Safford Road, I think, is a city, isn't it?
Correct. The road
that's-
itself is city, but the median is county.
Yeah,
Well, that's-
so it's a confusing thing, but
Right.
it is doable to do stuff along Safford on the bike trail, I think, so you
If you,
could.
as long as you put it in the street and not.
Yes,
touching-
and you could come from the side of the street, you know, over. You know, you could mist it, you know, or things like that, misting stations. The bikers would love it, yeah, bicycle people would love it.
Yeah.
You know, mist and then a fan that blows it right in. But it, you know, the thing that concerns me about water features are our hard water in Florida is so difficult on the fine plumbing of fountains. And I've seen so many public art fountains that aren't working. And I remember St. Pete, they had a whole wall that was fascinating. It was just a whole wall of things. They really missed the bus, because there was technology where that wall of water, which was maybe 30 feet high by about 40, 50 feet wide, should have been the entrance to the building. And they could have it just so that there's all these kind of photoelectric cells or whatever it is. You just walk right through the water, and it separates and stops for you to go back in. But that was never operating.
Right.
It was always off. It was always being fixed. And I remember one in Kansas City, and down at the plaza, it was really spectacular when it was working, but it never worked. You know, I think our water is really tough on that kind of plumbing stuff. Now, the water department here would maybe like that challenge, but it really just builds up and clogs things up. But so I don't know. You know, maybe the plumbing in the aeration fountains that you see all over town is a different kind of thing. But that's just a big thing of water. You know. So.
David, do you have any,
So you can soften water with magnets or salt.
Yeah.
So that could be something to solve, but I think the water in general needs to be probably cleaned up a bit.
Get rid of that chlorine.
Right, exactly. There's many
better
more
for using
ways to
rainwater.
purify water.
Runoff.
I really like the idea of making it usable, like cooling stations. I mean, every time I hear summer, I get so terrified, that it's coming, like it's imminent. So, Craig Park to me doesn't seem like I haven't been down there that much, but it doesn't seem like it's used to its full potential. So maybe, and plus the parking is kind of shoddy.
Parking, you'd have to walk to
Bad,
it almost.
bad
Cultural
Right.
center, you can park at the cultural
You
center.
can,
Yeah.
you can.
Sometimes. Sometimes you can.
It is very well used, though, because my office is right there, and I see tons of people there, so somehow they figure it out.
When I go over there, yeah, I can never find a parking
The
place.
new
'cause it's
pier
full.
in St. Pete has a big water featured park. It's just basically a splash pad for kids.
Right.
But there's two concession stands surrounding it, And one of them's for adults and another one is for the kiddies. And it's very, very popular.
Which is a good thing.
Yes.
Yes.
Where is that, Robert?
The draw for tourists.
Yeah,
An
and
opportunity.
it's just a good thing to go there for. I mean, there's a lot of shade trees. There's beautiful shade trees in Craig Park, surrounded by water. But it's hot. It is hot there. We walk our dog down there sometimes, and there's one
you said you had the
spigot that
same
we
peak
figured
here.
out where we can water the dog from. You know? But that's almost public works though, in a way too. But this is something where it could be added onto as an art project.
Right.
And
Debbie?
yeah.
So the European misters are something that I thoroughly enjoyed each time I've gone to Europe in the summer. Overhead misters, just hitting you with cool, just not wetting you, but just such a cool mist that it is refreshing. I love that idea. This is Florida, and I think that would be a fabulous thing.
Well, beach bars have
Also-
it. Beach
also-
bars have it.
Yeah.
Beach bars.
Also, over the Pinellas Trail, if we have that area that we can use over Safford, is that what you said? You know, even to have an artistically done bicycle tipped on its side with misters coming out over the bicycle trail for bicyclers to go under. I mean,
That would be
you know,
cool,
there are
yeah.
wonderful things that are done with metal works and what have you. I can see something like that. And I think that that's a fair opportunity
Well-
for art to happen and cooling to happen.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, go ahead. Lucianne.
Always the brass tacks. What about budget? I mean, we're kind of maxed out. So do we want to carve this out as a priority and dedicate some future funding to it? Because,
Don't forget about the plumbing that you're gonna have to put in,
Absolutely.
and you're gonna have to pay for it.
Yeah. Marissa, do you have a ballpark on what our financial status is?
I can give you a full breakdown at the next meeting.
Okay.
We did have the large purchase from Mike Elwell
Right.
recently, so we did take several thousands of dollar hit.
Right.
But other than that, it hasn't changed too much
Right.
since the last time we spoke.
Right, the Black Heritage Project would be a big bite.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is our budget sort of built around the fact that we're kind of are reactive to situations? Whether it's somebody builds a building, we get a percentage of it, we have a budget that's sort of annual and then we react to that? Or do we have a component of our committee to do proactive kinds of thoughts, where to say, could we as our arts council have some kind of impact on or influence on making Safford a main drive down to the docks, a main connector between the docks and Tarpon? I mean, in the future, in the near future, does that work?
I'd
in
have to
increments?
go back and review the ordinance, but right now, it's basically set up to use contributions from developers' projects.
Yeah,
So
we're reactive.
Right.
We're reactive, but is it something that, I mean, sometimes I hear us coming up against things where we would like to be a little bit more proactive on the things.
It, kind of a segue into, I'm still a little stuck on our first topic today with, the placement of art out along 19. And I'm not picking on them for any reason for that particular project, because if there's a car wash that's being done now, that there's probably going to be some sort of a commitment of some dollars to it. As we move forward, do we want to place things along 19 like that in their businesses, or do we want that money to go towards some of these other projects and some of the things where we've identified, underutilized areas in downtown Tarpon and some things to do?
Unfortunately, I'm pretty sure that the ordinance gives the developer the option.
It
to
does.
either-
Yes.
So,
Is it an appropriate location, though, if it's not, how many people are really gonna see the car wash art that they put out if they decide to put a piece of artwork there? Or in this instance, the Anclote, and again, I'm not picking on them because of any of the things that have taken place. But I'm just, as we look going forward, this is where the opportunities are for us to capture you know, the monies that are gonna make a significant difference into the public art
Yeah.
throughout the city.
Lucianne? Yeah,
Trish was,
Well, no, it's really interesting because, Bill, I was having exactly the same thought when you expressed it. And I was gonna ask the question, if the developer has a choice, I mean, can he say, we want to put this piece of sculpture here? I mean, this is what we choose to do. Or can we say, we would rather have the money? Because it seems to me like the money that they would be putting into that where nobody can see it would be better used for another project like we were just discussing.
It's their choice.
yes.
It's their choice.
Their choice completely.
And it's basically all the Public Art Committee can do. If the developer decides that they want to do the art project by themselves and, you know, take that on, the only thing that the committee is tasked to do is to approve the artist and the concept for it. But
Right, and
we're
we
not
also-
really supposed to dictate, other than, you know,
Right.
it's got to be able to be viewed by the public, but.
But it also has to meet a certain benchmark of value.
Right, exactly.
That
But
was-
we can't dictate to them, really, basically, that was kind of a courtesy to the Public Art Committee that they were showing us this in advance, basically. So, you know, if they choose to use their money to put in their own art project, that, not just them or any developer, that's where they come to you for approval of the artist that they chose and the media and what it's gonna look like.
And
you
the
know.
value.
Exactly. And that's all that the public committee is tasked to do.
that's the current situation.
Right.
And this ordinance was written many years ago when development was sort of in a different morph in Tarpon Springs. Can we propose to the commission that the ordinance be amended?
Sure. I don't see why not.
I think we should, because look at Icaria, for instance. I mean, they brought up Icaria, but they were correct in that the sculpture is not really able to be seen from, I mean, you don't really see it when you're traveling down Pinellas. You don't really see that little
Well, it's
thing
still
that they
more
put up.
visible than this would
This will
be.
be in
You think it-
19.
you
Oh,
think it
yeah,
is?
yeah, because
No,
it's next to Winn-Dixie. I
Well,
mean,
I
a
know
lot of.
that, I know that, but I'm just saying
Did they
for
come
public.
before the Public Art
Yes, they
Committee?
did.
They did?
It
Okay.
did,
I think
but,
that
you know,
piece-
it's interesting,
What
the
was the history
scale,
behind there?
the scale of the sculpture was a surprise to me when it went up in reference to the actual buildings. We had beautiful designs and schematics, but we didn't have any reference point to the height of the buildings. And so I thought it was going to be far more monumental. So scale is critical.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
So do we need to work
Well,
with the
that's-
city
yeah,
attorney to propose an adjustment to?
I mean, it just seems really silly, you know, someone builds a car wash that, you know, the public art monies that are kind of earmarked based upon what the intent, I believe, of the ordinance was, are going to be for something in their parking lot or their,
A water feature?
it,
Drive-through water treatment.
yeah, it seems a bit misguided, and again, I'm
But
not
we'd have
picking
to
on
come
these
up
folks,
with
but
what we want, and then they'd have to get it.
as we look at future growth,
Right.
we're gonna see this repeated over and over and over again, and unless we make a change in it, I think it's gonna really diminish what we're able to do.
Well, let me
Okay,
find
I-
out what you have to do to
Okay.
change an ordinance.
Yeah, I know it has to go,
Sure.
obviously before the Board of Commissioners, but I think one good place to start is for everybody to revisit the ordinance and make some notes on it as to what we see as loopholes or flaws, like this, you know, the positioning of the art. And, you know, maybe look into ordinances from nearby municipalities to see whether the same
Comparison.
options exist. or whether it's just a flat contribution, which I think would be much better.
Well, if you do the workshop with the Tampa Public
Oh,
Art,
that's
you know,
something to
she's
bring
going to
up.
be
That should be,
key on answering all those kind of
yeah,
questions.
Right.
that's big.
Can we have some city officials at that meeting?
Which meeting?
With
I think it's
Tampa Art?
premature.
Well, you know, we're in the comprehensive plan, we're looking through the and this is the time to really look at all this stuff. I mean, the comprehensive plan, as I've seen it, doesn't even mention the word art. You know, so this is, we're a public art committee, and how important are we to the city if we're not even mentioned in that thing?
Well, that's why they're doing all these workshops and
All
comprehensive
right,
plan
but-
meetings, so that you
Yeah.
can voice
All
your
right.
opinion.
So raising an awareness and the communications that goes on with things is for just us to hear it, and then we make it to somebody else, and maybe that hits on a couple of years, maybe it doesn't. We're could be in a position of raising awareness of the status of Tarpon Springs and have a major impact through the visual art. We are a visual city. People come here because it's a special place. So for our art to be special, we need different thought processes coming from the city. So works projects, big investment projects should be, we need to get this to the art committee right away, before anything happens, so that we can be proactive in this, instead of saying, oh, we got a spot over here on the corner, we want you to put a statue there, right? And then we're stuck with putting a statue there, rather than saying, well, we got some other kind of art we could do, but we have that budget and we have that place, so. I mean, I'm being a broken record here, but it seems like it's not mentioned in the comprehensive plan, and,
Well, that's something that I think we have to look at. I think we have to, individually revisit the ordinance and the master plan, and, with an eye to, making appropriate changes to it, recommend changes, and, see that it is incorporated into the, comprehensive and strategic plan.
You're all
But I-
welcome to write a letter and outline all your, things that you
Right.
would like to see. And, I can submit them all, and then we could go from there and see.
Right. Okay, that sounds like a good idea. Okay, let's try to move this along a little bit. Old Business E, the Endangered Animal Project. Lucianne, do you have any?
I'm not crazy about the project, that's just my personal opinion. I think we have other priorities that are more meaningful, and that's just my personal opinion.
Bill?
I think if it's integrated into something, another project, I'm okay with it being a subject of that particular project. But to just go and create an endangered species, probably not the,
Right. My enthusiasm is cooled on it as well. Trish?
Yeah, yes, I agree with Lucy, Lucianne, yes.
David?
I think I've been subjected enough to it.
Robert? Robert?
I actually happen to like the idea of a big full-scale manatee down it. So people could go up and touch it and have their photograph in front of it, but it'd have to be really well done. And I could see that, just, but not these people. I mean, they do
it's a
really
spot.
good work, but.
Yeah. No, I think we ruled out the Australian artists for a number of reasons. And I think, the shipping costs alone would probably equate to the price of my house. But anyway, Debbie, do you have any?
I did look into it. The gentleman that I found down in the Keys, it's, I'm just gonna say, estate sales. There is no regulatory, there is no way of verifying that it's original art. There is no way of verifying any of those things, so.
Okay, off the table. Okay. So do I have a motion to proceed with the endangered animal project.
So move.
Second.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
No, you don't want
No. All opposed, say nay. Nay. Okay. Motion, okay.
I was confused.
Motion denied. Yeah, it's very confusing, but it's good old Robert's rules.
I know,
Okay, new business. Well, Diane just mentioned this, the date for the public art workshop, which she very nicely arranged with Robin Franklin Nye, Arts and Cultural Affairs, City of Tampa, is March 31st at 10 a.m. via Zoom. So we will have another PAC meeting prior to the Zoom meeting.
Will that be a Zoom for everyone, or can we meet and Zoom with?
I'm gonna have to
That
find
person.
out, yeah.
If we could meet here and Zoom with them, I think it would be much more
Easier.
beneficial
I
for
think
us
it's a great idea.
to interact.
I'll see if we
Yeah.
can do that.
Kind of have a mixed thing, okay. All right, the Dennis Anderson Blue Heron Sculpture Opportunity from Mike Elwell. The feasibility for is there feasibility for installation in Craig Park? That's something, there's a picture of it in your handouts. I believe there was another, image of it that was in the,
it's online.
yeah, online.
I really like this. I think it's-
So do I.
I think it's
Lucianne,
visually
you-
very impressive. I just really,
You
really
want to
like
kick off
it.
as usual here on the comments?
I guess I'm looking for the second illustration.
There is not, it was just sent, I think, in, online.
It's huge.
What is this made out of?
It's bronze.
Bronze.
Is it bronze?
Yeah,
Okay.
2 feet, almost this, the wood image part of the bottom, the base is 2 feet high, and the actual height of the sculpture is almost 7 feet.
So that would be 9 feet up in the air. $17,000.
And he's recommending it be put on a 2-foot-high pedestal. It will not have a pedestal. So in other words, that's not, the pedestal is not included. He's recommending it because the bill beak will impale somebody if it's, you know, so.
So this bottom part that we're seeing.
Right, that's in his studio.
Oh, okay, so
So
we would
that's an
have to.
additional cost to the 17.
Correct. So we would have to create a pedestal that's, he was recommending at least 2 feet high. And he suggested, I mean, he's full of ideas. He was just saying that, you know, it'd be really neat to put like a seating area around it, you know, as part of the pedestal so that, and, you know, that would be beautiful in Craig Park where there's all those trees, canopies and stuff, so.
Yeah, I had a vision of this in Craig Park. I think it's lovely. Oh, Lucianne?
I love I like the pedestal that he's on here. Why can't we, if we buy it, why can't we buy the whole thing with the pedestal?
I don't know if it's concrete, though. It might be, just be wood, I'm not sure.
It's just the bird, it's not the tree?
Right.
I thought it
No,
was
it's
the whole piece.
It's the whole thing. It's just that there's the base that's
Oh, yeah,
on
you
it.
can- Yeah. okay,
Yeah.
sure. That's what I thought.
So
yeah,
what
the
he's
whole thing.
recommending is another base below
Yeah,
it,
another base
the
below.
2
Yeah,
feet.
Right.
you need something to attach it to the ground.
Right.
And it has to be concrete.
See, I see
Lucianne,
a,
we've been, excuse me, take this in order, Lucianne.
In the interest of being proactive, I would be in favor of tabling this until we do our own sort of proactive planning on where we want to spend our dollars. I think it's coincidental that Debbie brought us a picture of birds priced at $17,000, and we now have a proposal, not by the artist, but essentially by a gallery. I am neutral.
Okay. Bill?
I think it's really a nice piece. My concern is again with the funding. I know we've got some really serious projects here. And I hate to slow things down, but I'm trying to figure out how we're gonna pay for all these things. And again, it leads me back to our conversation we had prior. Without that source of revenue coming in like that, I think it kind of stymies some of these. We need to be real careful, because this isn't just 17,000. Till we get the area done around it and the base for it, I mean, we're probably talking more $25,000 to get that done.
Right.
Till you get a base and you get the landscaping done that needs to support it, and probably some lighting, I would imagine.
I will tell you that when I talked to the artist, he called me and told me about this piece because he's getting ready to liquidate everything that he has, so he's gonna be putting it out to auction. And he mentioned that he thought that we were so nice, you know, and working with him with the Pelican and everything, that he wanted to offer it to Tarpon Springs first before he put it out to auction. So in other words, this is not gonna be, you know, available. You know, so,
Maybe
and
we
he was
should
giving
bid
us the
on it.
best price that he could, so,
Yeah, can we bid on it?
Auctions are kind of a roll of the dice.
yeah. So I don't know, I mean, I'm just telling you what he told me, but, and it could be that it won't sell, but I don't know. I have no idea.
I mean, it's very attractive, and, yeah, can I envision it someplace in Craig Park? I think it would be very pretty. But, I'm just digging my heels in a little bit with, you know, being
Sure.
a cheerleader for it with the funding issue.
Trish?
I really, really like it. I would love to see us have that in Craig Park if we determine that we have the funds for it. And I-
David? Yeah, I think everything's beginning to boil down to dollars.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I like it too. I can see it on a round form with seating around it, with lights and everything, and it would look beautiful. But as Bill is saying, it would cost around 25,000-30,000 even,
Right.
once you get into the whole logistics of it.
Aside from it being an attractive piece, the question is why, you know, and to me, it's an unsolicited piece, it's not part of our planning. And I think we need to just plan these things out a little bit more. I mean, we get these people inviting themselves, you know, for us to buy some of their art, you know, and so I like the idea of either tabling it or just saying, no, it's a nice piece. But if we had a garden filled with bronze sculptures of animals, I mean, and we had the budget, it would fit.
Right.
But I think right now, it's just a piece that is diverting us from maybe a greater purpose.
Debbie?
I'm in agreement with all y'all.
Okay. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Okay. Any seconds?
a motion, what is the motion?
To
Table.
table.
The motion is to table.
Yes.
I thought it was to approve.
Approve the purchase? Okay. Can I have a motion to approve the purchase? Can I have a second? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
You want to buy it?
Am I the
Okay.
only one?
Okay. All opposed? Okay, motion fails. Okay. Did you get that, Marissa? It's, okay. All right, moving right along here. Okay, item C is going to be a rolling item on the agenda. I asked Diane to include it in order to allow us to deal with any submissions we get for a CRA mural project, just to expedite the process. So, okay, I just want to bring up something. I don't know whether any of you were aware of the CRA meeting last night after the regular Board of Commissioners meeting. There was an agenda item that involved placement of 4 production statues. It was, you may want to go to the,
Are these from the last budget cycle that were approved?
yeah, these were the ones that were proposed by Commissioner Carr, and they were discussed at length. We were given a big printout of a bunch of production sculptures, and we sent an email to the Board of Commissioners saying that because they were production pieces, that the the Public Art Committee did not endorse their purchase or placement, okay? But they were purchased through CRA funds for location in a CRA agency. I wrote an email to the Board of Commissioners on Monday saying that it may constitute a violation of 290, Section 6 of the ordinance that gives the Public Art Committee basically authority to locate all public art in the city. It came up, unfortunately, wonderful Tom Funchin and his staff put a lot of time and energy into creating a big presentation on locations for all of these 4 sculptures, but they took a vote and they decided that it's going to come back to us. So it'll be on the March agenda. We may decide to agree with the placements that Tom Funchin picked out. We may decide to move some things. There are 4 sculptures. There is a yellow lab, there's a boy and his dog, there are twin herons, and a turtle. Okay? My personal opinion, and I suggest that, you know, you look at the backup from the meeting last night, and, my personal take on this is that they all be installed at or around the dog park, you know, off Live Oak.
Because the dogs really will appreciate that.
Yes.
Yeah.
How about in the dog park?
That could be done.
Yes, I think that'd be nice. Dogs would jump over them and do other
Okay.
things.
So I just wanted to give you a heads up that that will be on the March agenda.
But
Diane?
we are only gonna be able to vote on where they go.
Correct. We are only going to
They're already-
locate them.
they're already
They have been
along the
purchased.
Tarpon Spring.
Yes. But I think this was an important decision because I think it gave us some control over some of these art projects, you know, that I think is sorely needed. Diane, you want to do the city announcements?
No, I just wanted to mention that in preparation for talking to Robin from the city of Tampa, you might want to go ahead and think about maybe, you know, some questions that you want to pose to her, you know, at that particular meeting. I know it's far in advance, you know, it's way down the road, you know, March 31st, but it's a good opportunity, you know, to see what they're doing, how they're doing it, you know, how they address water features, how they, you know, get around city, county, different things, you know. So please be thinking about your questions and kind of maybe, as you think of them, you know, jot them down so that we can make the best use of her time, you know, kind of thing, so.
Maybe as people think of things, they can email them to you and we could
Sure,
collate.
I can keep a running
Yeah.
total, you know, kind of
Sound
thing.
good to everybody?
Vinnick's telephone number?
Yeah, can
That's
he
why we-
donate some money to
We
us?
had somebody like that here.
Exactly, yeah, exactly.
I think we should campaign for the airport's budget.
There you
Yeah,
go.
there
How
you
many,
go.
how many millions is
Yeah.
that?
Our big flamingo, right?
Yeah.
Yes, that's all I've got.
Oh, you had the announcement there, about the newsletter?
Oh, yes. Well, I think I sent it to you all. That was the public art newsletter, the state one, and we had 3 entries in there, so that was really nice.
Yeah,
Get some
and we got a
statewide
very
publicity.
nice write-up by Creative Pinellas also.
And,
So-
yeah, and Elizabeth Indiano's play that she just recently did about the mural and everything, we got a lot of press on that, so a lot of people saw it, you know, in the Times, so, and the Beacon. So
Yeah.
It's good.
Yes, and we have the owl herself with us in the, in the meeting. Okay, all right, now, I don't want you all to jump on this one, but I need a motion to adjourn.
I will second that.
Okay. Meeting is adjourned at 3:49. The next regular meeting is Wednesday, March 9th at 2 PM. Thank you all very much.